Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar on reading EPUBs with screen readers. There are some quick housekeeping items to review. Live captioning is available by simply clicking on the CC icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can also enlarge the captioning box by clicking on the upward arrow in the top right corner. This will be a 40-minute session with 20 minutes set aside at the end for your questions. If at any point you have trouble seeing the bottom of the screen, simply adjust your view options in the top center of the Zoom window. Chat is disabled in order to route all questions to the Q&A. You will find the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. Feel free to submit your questions at any time, but please note that since we may not get to them until the end, be sure to mention which software and/or assistive technology you are asking about. We have set up an EPUB resources page at bit.ly/EPUB-ATN. The QR code to the right will also take you to this site. As soon as we have the webinar recording, we post it on this page along with the PowerPoint decks. Finally, next week's webinar will be on the common EPUB reading apps that offer great experiences for learners with low vision. And now I'd like to turn it over to today's speakers, Amy Salmon and George Kirscher, and let them introduce themselves. Thank you, Amy and George, for providing us with this webinar.
Well, thank you. My name's George Kirscher, and with the DAISY Consortium, I'm Chief Innovations Officer. And at Benetech, I'm Senior Officer of Global Literacy. Amy?
My name's Amy Salmon, and I'm the Senior Accessibility Consultant for Tech for All Consulting. And thank you all for joining us today. In today's webinar, we are going to be demonstrating how a student who is blind using a screen reader can enjoy the many benefits of an EPUB book using most of the common apps that are available as e-readers today. The EPUBs could be content coming from ATN, Bookshare, publishers, or library resources. We will be demonstrating several of the most popular e-readers out there in today's webinar, including RedShelf, Microsoft Edge, VitalSource Bookshelf Online, and Apple Books. We thought we'd throw Apple Books in to show that e-readers cross over from just desktop computers to mobile technology, and students can take it on the go with them as they're moving. And I'll turn it over to George for concepts.
Okay. So some of the fundamental concepts we'd like to explain early on. We don't know how familiar people are with screen readers, but first bullet point, it takes three to tango. And what we mean there is that in order to have a great reading experience, it's a combination of the application, the reading app that presents the information, the book content itself, which is accessible, and then the access technology. In this case, we're talking about screen readers that presents the information to the person. So the screen reader will create a model of the information and put it into a buffer that it accesses and presents to the person. And it builds this buffer using the information that's in the ebook itself. So this is, you'll be hearing the screen readers talk about level 3 headings or level 1 heading, and that's not on the page, but it's built from the information it gathers from the material itself. Well, there's other things like list items and things like. So the screen reader will deliver the information in both speech, and if the person has a refreshable Braille device, the screen reader also drives that refreshable Braille. So there's two types of information two types of EPUBs you can get. You can either get it from a distributor like Red Shelf or Vital Source and have a book purchased or licensed and put into your library collection, or you can take an EPUB that's DRM free and sideload it or use it with an application of your choosing that supports sideloading. So, Amy, over to you.
As I mentioned in a few minutes earlier, we will be demonstrating some of the most common or popular e-readers or reading systems in today's webinar, along with the most popular screen readers, including JAWS for Windows, NVDA, both of those are for Windows-based computers and systems, and VoiceOver for iOS as part of our demonstrations. So the first one we thought is going to be a high level of just what is an e-reader and a screen reader reading an EPUB.
As I explore the books in my library, the screen reader announces the information about each title.
Book covers. Fundamentals of World Regional Geography, Marketing, and Introduction by Understanding Motor Development by David L. Gallahue. Early Childhood Education Today, 14th edition by George S. Morrison.
I'm going to open this book by pressing the Enter key. I can then read through the book using regular screen reader controls for navigating text content.
Page edit. Maslow and Self-Actualization Theory. Banner landmark heading Level 1 Maslow and Self-Actualization Theory. Abraham Maslow, 1890 to 1970, developed a theory of human motivation called self-actualization. His theory is based on the satisfaction of human needs, and he identified self-actualization, or self-fulfillment, as the highest human need.
As expected, the screen reader is speaking the text, but it also told me essential information such as the first item being a heading, and I'll hear when I go into and come out of a list.
List with 5 items. Bullet. Life essentials, such as food and water. Bullet. Safety and security. Bullet. Belonging and love. Bullet. Achievement and prestige. Bullet. Aesthetic needs. Out of list.
This rich experience with a screen reader is because the EPUB is built on web technologies. I can use the familiar commands I've learned for surfing the web and enjoy the same advantages such as hearing image descriptions.
Graphic A flowchart shows Maslow's hierarchy of needs and your roles as a teacher.
In addition to alt text, this EPUB from Pearson has extended descriptions.
Link figure 5.6 full alternative text.
If I select this link, I'll get a very detailed description of what's in this image.
Early Childhood Education Today document. The following list provides each level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the roles of a teacher, from lowest to highest. List bullet life essentials, food, water, air. List bullet provide snacks in the classroom. Bullet work with parents and families to ensure that children are well fed. Bullet provide designated water fountain times or have children keep water bottles in the classroom, not paper or styrofoam cups. Out of list bullet safety and security. Safety.
There's a lot of information in this figure, so I'll stop there and go back to the text. I did this by following the link in the EPUB. I don't need to learn how to use new commands for this. If I already know how to use my screen reader on the web, then I can use the same commands in an EPUB to move between the headings and links, jump to the next graphic, navigate around a table, and so on. So because EPUBs are built on web technology, the compatibility with screen readers means there's a great experience reading the HTML-based content, not just to the text, but to rich information such as headings, lists, tables, and image descriptions. And the use of links provides a familiar navigation model for endnotes and other features. And the superior navigation features of EPUB, including the table of contents, page navigation, and search, are also highly valuable to screen reader users.
Thank you very much to Richard Orm for contributing that demonstration for us for today's webinar. He was using the VitalSource Bookshelf Windows native app e-reader for that demonstration with NVDA screen reader. And we'll turn it over to George for requirements.
Okay, so the fundamental requirements that you have to have in order to be successful, you got to be able to independently launch the reading app on whatever platform you're on, and go to the library and select the title. Navigate the book, and we'll talk more about that, but there's a lot, very important to be able to navigate through the book, going to the table of contents, moving through headings, and so on. So heading navigation and reading the headings and identifying what they are, going to paragraphs, graphical content, and tables, all of these things are just part of the fundamentals of reading. And finally, you want to be able to leave bookmarks, to move around in the book, annotate notes that you're taking, and get back to them. Okay.
Great. So let's go ahead and jump right into launching. So you need to launch your e-reader or open your e-reader. So think of this as kind of putting the key in the ignition to get that car started. We need to launch it. What does the user need to be able to do? Well, a screen reader user needs to be able to first be able to open or launch the e-reader independently. They shouldn't have to rely on somebody else to come in and click on the icon or use a mouse to open the e-reader. They should be able to open it on their own with their screen reader. So the second is they need to be able to easily understand and be able to navigate the landing page or screen of their e-reader. Some call it the library screen, some call it their book screen, the main screen of their e-reader. They need to be able to navigate it, understand what's there, see their books, and understand how to open their books. And most importantly, they need to be able to locate and open the book they want. Locate could be locating it on their library, or it could be locating it in a store. It could be going to the store or a distributor and locating the book, downloading it into their library, and then opening it from within their library.
Okay. So we're going to move to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about navigation. First of all, a sighted person can navigate pretty easily inside applications and books and things like that. It's very easy to, the vision takes in the whole picture of everything that's going on. A person using a screen reader doesn't have that luxury, and they can only focus on here one thing at a time. And so the ability to navigate through the title is very, very important. It makes things so much faster than reading everything. So one of the first items is the ability to go to a table of contents and navigate, move through, arrow through the table of contents, and then press enter or some other mechanism to go to that part of the book, the chapter. And being able to navigate by page number is very important, and most of the reading applications we're demonstrating have the ability to get to a particular page. And this is associated with the print page book. So if there is a print version of this digital book, many times in a classroom there are students that have the print book and other students have the digital version. You need to be able to get to that same spot. So the go to page function would take you to the very top of that page, same page in the print book. So with that, we're going to be taking a look at our another video, which is about side loading using the Edge browser on Windows and NVDA. NVDA is non-visual desktop, and it's a free open source screen reader. So if we could move to that next one.
Before we do that, we were going to do reading. So we want to go through reading first.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So we've launched our e-reader. George has talked about navigating the ebook, so we now know how to navigate it. The most important part, I think, for everyone is how do I read the darn book? And so reading is critical to the accessibility of an EPUB or ebook to a blind student or a student using a screen reader. Reading features they should be able to do without any problems are start and stop automatic or continuous reading with their screen reader. And when they start and stop, when they stop, if they resume reading, they should resume from where they paused, not back up at the top of the page. So that's one critical reading feature. We want to make sure the reading system supports as well as the ebook. Access all image alt text. So if there is alt text provided, make sure it's accessible. The screen reader user can access it, as well as captions that are available for images, and whenever available, extended descriptions for images and figures. Those should all be accessible and available to the screen reader user. They should be able to navigate by heading, as George was talking about earlier, lists, tables, images, any of the normal hotkeys that a blind student or a user of a screen reader would use to navigate a web page. They should be able to use those same commands in their ebook. So if they want to jump quickly through their ebook by heading or by landmark or section, they should be able to do that. If the ebook is properly marked up and the reading system supports it, then they'll be able to use all those commands and navigate just as fast through their ebook as they can through the Amazon website. They should be able to identify and correctly read tables. Correctly reading tables is a little different for a screen reader user than it is for somebody who's visually reading the table. We can't see the column or the row headers when we're in the middle of the table. So if we're in a cell in column 4, row 10, we may not remember what the heading of that column was or what the row heading is. So making sure those tables are properly marked up and provide that information to the screen reader user as they're navigating the table is another important feature that we would be looking for accessibility in reading. And then as Richard's video showed, the ability to navigate between internal hyperlinks, whether those are internal hyperlinks going to say a glossary definition of a word or maybe another section within the same ebook that references content in another chapter, the ability to select the hyperlink, to be placed in the new content where it starts, and a mechanism to go back to where you were in the book is also critical and important. And then finally, the ability for the screen reader user to read by character, word, line, sentence, paragraph, all of their standard reading navigation should work in the ebook and within the e-reading system. So
now we can now we could do the video of Edge and a side-loaded title. Hello, I'm going to be demonstrating side loading of an EPUB on Windows. So I've got the screen reader NVDA, the free open source screen reader for Windows, on Windows 10. I'm on the desktop now, and I'm going to move to Windows Explorer. And what I've got is a unprotected EPUB that I've downloaded. It's from Macmillan, and let's see.
Date modified. Intro-brain and behavior.epub 1.
Intro to brain and behavior.epub. So I press enter on that.
Microsoft Edge window. Refresh button. Loading page. Stop. Clickable. Page 49 of 592 and an introduction to brain and behavior. Tap or hits.
So it opened in Edge, which is the default reader on Windows for EPUB, and it remembered the last place I was in the book. So I'm going to go to the table of contents, Alt-T.
T. An introduction to brain and behavior dash Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge window. List. Brainstem. Page 4960 of 572.
And I'm going to go page up. I'm going to get us to chapter 2.
Clinical focus 2 dash the brain's internal features. Page 4052 of 5. Chapter 2 what is the nervous system's function? Key terms. Chapter 2 what is the nervous system's functional anatomy? Page 3144 of 572.
So I'm going to press enter there.
Frame clickable heading level 1 chapter 2 an introduction to brain and behavior document heading level 1 chapter 2.
So that's the beginning of the chapter. It says it's a heading level 1, and I can move down and read.
Heading level 1 what is the nervous system's functional anatomy? List with 2 items link research focus 2-1 the genesis of the cerebellum.
And it says that I'm in a list and there's a couple things in there, but I can hit the H key to move to the next heading in this chapter.
Research focus 2-1 grouping and illustration shows a target. Graphic heading level 2 research focus 2-1 an introduction to brain and behavior document. Graphic and illustration shows.
Press the control key to stop speaking.
A genesis of the cerebellum. When an adult's brain is damaged as in trial.
So I'm just going to read by line and a couple lines. And
traumatic brain injury, for example, we see a pat.
I can read continuously, which is a much smoother reading experience.
Traumatic brain injury, for example, we see a pattern of behavioral changes that offer insight into brain functions as described by Fred Lynch in Link Clinical Focus 1-1. Living with traumatic brain injury. Naturally occurring brain injuries rare. Move a single structure completely, leaving the rest of the brain intact.
And
however, a genesis.
I can stop reading and read by word.
A genesis. The failure of brain
And
regions.
by character.
E-G-I-O-N.
And go to the next paragraph.
Historically, the cerebellum was viewed as a motor structure with the most obvious sign of damage being
And the
ataxia,
next
a failure of
paragraph.
motor structure. The cerebellum contains the most neurons of any brain region, accounting for 80% of the neurons in
So
humans
what
and a
I'm
whopping
doing
90.
is using the same reading commands that I normally do in a web browser or in a document. It's the same experience. I can read by character, word, line, paragraph. I can jump to the next heading, and I could jump to tables and read tables. I'm going to use the go to page function.
An introduction to brain and behavior dash Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge window. Go to any page between 1 and 592 left parent.
So
CTRL plus G right.
there's 592, and I can go to any of the pages there.
Blank.
And if I want to go to page 50,
4,
and press
5,
enter.
0, 50. An introduction to brain and behavior document. Out of frame click then a single task and each brainstem region performs more than a single task and each contains groupings of nuclei that serve various purposes. In fact, all 3 regions have both sensory.
I can continue my reading using my favorite commands. Let's see if we have a graphic here.
Hindbrain grouping figure 2 dash. The physical size as shown in link figure 2-17a dot. Figure 2-17 the cerebellum and movement left parent, a right parent. They're relatively large, sir. The bellum enables finely coordinated movements such as flying and landing in birds and pouncing on prey and cats. Slow-mov. In animals such as the sloth have a smaller cerebellum relative to brain size.
So there's the alt text for that image. Okay, the next thing I want to demonstrate is the bookmark function. So I've left a bookmark at this location I'm at now and at another place in the book. So I go Alt-B.
An introduction to brain and behavior dash Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge window. Toolbar grouping. Bookmarks window. List. Chapter 3. What are the nervous system's functional units?
That's
73. 11:08 a.m. 2 of 2.
And
clinical focus 3-3 Huntington disease 100. 11:10 a.m. 1 of 2.
And There I am.
An introduction to brain and behavior document.
So
out of list,
I
out of frame,
can
clickable
leave
list with two
multiple bookmarks in the title, and it shows me where they are, the page they're on, the chapter section that they're in, and even the date and time I placed the bookmark. So this is a very handy tool for anybody studying. Okay, so that was sideloading with Edge. And there are utilities that allow you to make annotations and take notes in Edge. I just saw that question come in. The next demo we're going to do is, again, with Windows, this time with JAWS, a very, very popular screen reader, and using Red Shelf, a very popular higher education service providing materials. We're going to use the same title for this demo from Macmillan for this demonstration. We're going to be doing a demonstration today of screen reader reading an EPUB in the Red Shelf online reader. I'm using JAWS version 2019, and I've got Windows 10 machine. So I'm on my desktop right now. I have an hotkey to launch Chrome. So I do
Alt-Control-C. Google search region, search edit combo to set the value, escape, virtual PC cursor.
And I want to go to Red Shelf, so I'll
Control-L, address and search bar edit, https://www.redshelf.com.
and
My library Red Shelf, https://redshelf.com/accounts/login center, https://redshelf.com/. Page has 5 regions, 7 headings, and 28 links. Start.
So Chrome remembers your username and login, so it's automatically logged me in. And I'll hit H.
Fundamental accessibility tests for reading systems conformance test document 0300 heading.
Go to
My library
top.
My shelf heading level 1.
There's my shelf. I'm just hitting the H key to go to headings.
Redeem your Red Shelf access code heading level 3. An introduction to brain and behavior heading level 2.
There's an introduction to brain and behavior, the book I want to be reading. And I want to get down to where
G. Campbell, Teskey, Ian Q. Wishaw, Brian Cole. From authors Brian Cole. Days remaining, 15. Link view book details. For an introduction to visited link, start reading.
So I want to start reading. I press enter.
Enter. Untitled - Google Chrome. Loading. Page has no links.
And it will remember where
Loading.
I left
Intro.
reading off.
Sidebar menu button, search button collapsed.
And I'll hit H to
chapter heading level 2. Heading level 2-1. Heading level 2, what are the origins of brain and behavior?
So I'm at chapter 1, but I'll go to the table of contents to go to a different chapter.
Home. Intro brain behavior sidebar menu button collapsed. Space. Main menu list. Visited link table of contents.
So I'll go to the table of
Enter.
contents.
Loading content. Table of contents link preface.
And if I want to use show the list of links, which is a JAWS command.
Links list dialog. Links list view preface 2 of 7. Media and supplements 3 of 722.
722 items in this table of contents. I can type the first characters to jump to something if I want to go to chapter, whatever chapter.
C-H-A. Media and chapter 1. What are the origins of brain and behavior? 4 of C. Clin H. Short 8 nervous system 21 of 7 C-A-A. Research folk. Chapter 2. What is the nervous system's functional anatomy? 34 of 722.
So if I want to go there, I press enter.
Enter. Book content main region. Heading level 2 chapter. Heading level 2-2. Heading level 2. What is the nervous system's functional anatomy?
Okay, so I'm in the beginning of this chapter, and I've explored the book. I know that there's some links that show the outline of the chapter at the beginning of it.
Figure. Catherine Streeter. Heading level 2 book content main region, book content frame 2 heading level 2. Heading level 2 what is the nervous system figure? Catherine Streeter figure blank. Link research focus 2-1 the genesis of the cerebellum. Blank. Link 2-1 overview of brain function and
But if I want to go to the next heading, I hit H.
2-1 overview of brain function and structure blank. The brain's primary function is to produce behavior or movement. To produce behavior as we search, explore, and manipulate our environment, the brain.
And I could move through this book line by line, or I could read continuously.
The brain's primary function is to produce behavior or movement. To produce behavior as we search, explore, and manipulate our environment, the brain must absorb information about the world about the objects around us, their size, shape, and location without stimuli, the brain.
And I can stop it, and I can read by word.
Cannot orient a body and direct it to.
Or
produce.
Character.
RODUCE.
Or I could
echo.
Or I could read by navigate by paragraph.
And direct it to produce an appropriate response. The nervous system's organs are designed to admit information from the world. The nervous system's organs are designed to admit information from the world Subject out any complex task. Principle 1: the nervous system produces movement in a perceptual world. The brain constructs.
Okay, so other navigation items I can move by heading.
Plastic patterns of neural organization, heading level 4. Functional organization of the nervous system, heading level 4.
And I'm just moving through the various headings.
The brain surface features, heading level 4.
I can see if there's any graphical content in here, any pictures.
This detail shows the triple protection around the brain. From inside to outside, we see the subarachnoid space, the meninges, and the skull. Graphic.
So it tells me that it was a graphic, and it read the alt text automatically. So that's...
Table with 2 columns and 15 rows. And column 1, row 1, term.
Here's a table, and I can just use my table navigation.
Anterior, row 2. Near toward the front of the animal or the front of the head, left parent, see also frontal and rostral, right parent, column 2.
And I can
antecaudal, row 3.
Move down.
Coronal, row 4. Dorsal, row 5.
And read that just as I would read a table in any other web page or other application. Okay. So Amy, I think it's over to you. And scary as it may be, we're going to try to do a live demo. Is that right, Amy?
Yes, it is. I'm going to keep it short though, so we have plenty of time for questions.
And there's a high Murphy factor with live demos, so good luck.
Everyone's fingers and toes crossed for me, please. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and my screen reader. And I'll be doing that in a minute, but just to answer a question that came through, the last demo was using the JAWS screen reader. So you were hearing JAWS as the screen reader. It was not actually the read out loud feature within the book. That was covered in a different webinar. But we're going to go ahead and screen share.
Okay, done. Vital source,
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen and so you're going to hear, if I could ask you to please stop chatting or texting at this point, because we are live and all of your text messages are going to be announced to everyone in the room, as well as recorded by my screen reader. So if we could hold off on texting for this brief demo, I'd appreciate it.
Heading left.
I am in the Vital Source Bookshelf online reader using the Firefox browser with the NVDA screen reader. I've already logged in, but to log in, it's very simple. Go to bookshelf.vitalsource.com. You can create your account there. Once you've created an account, you simply log in with the email and password that you created. So again, we launched it by simply going to a website. That's all we had to do. We signed in by simply entering an email and password that we had already created. We're going to navigate the library screen, which is the main screen here. And by that, we're going to use standard navigation for the screen reader, which would be navigate by heading using the letter H.
Main landmark clickable library property page my books button heading.
So these are all of the books I have in my library, and I'll just give you an example.
List with 35 items clickable fundamental reading tests for accessibility heading level 3.
Okay, so the first book in my library is the Fundamental Reading Test for Accessibility. If I simply down arrow,
Button open book.
I can open that book. If I hit H again,
List with 35 items clickable Hinkle and Cheever : Brunner and Siddhartha's Textbook of Medic Hinkle and Cheever :
I read really fascinating books. And down arrow again.
Heading level 3 button Textbook of Medical - Surgical. Out of list with.
And now I'm going to go back up to our My Books.
Main landmark clickable library property page list with 35 items Hinkle and Cheever. Clickable fundament. Main landmark clickable library property page My Books.
Okay, and if you just up arrow above the My Books heading, the bookshelf actually displays the last book you were currently reading.
Link, button, Introduction to Brain and Behavior.
So I, again, am going to be reading the Introduction to Brain and Behavior book that was generously provided for our testing by Macmillan. And I'm going to go down to Continue Reading.
Brian Call, button detail, main landmark, link continue reading.
That's going to open the book in the reader for the bookshelf environment.
Button skip ahead to book.
I'm going to go ahead and go to the table of contents. I'm just using the NVDA shortcut key B for button to go to the table of contents.
Navigation landmark library button, table of contents toggle button. Table of.
It places me in the table of contents. I'm going to skip past the search, but you can search the table of contents if you want to.
Table of contents heading level 3.
And go directly into the table of contents for the book. I can now navigate this using the down, up and down arrow keys or the letter B to navigate by button. I'm going to simply down arrow to get to where I want to in the book, which is chapter 2.
List, button 5th, button page if, button page X, button preface, button page X, button media, button chapter 1 what are, button chapter 2 what is the nervous system's functional. Chapter 2 what is the nervous system's functional anatomy. Heading level 3. Button go to chapter 2 what is the.
And I'm open to a subsection of the chapter, so I have a smaller version of the TOC just for chapter 2 now.
Button go to chapter.
I want to go to the beginning of that chapter, so I'm going to select go to chapter 2.
Book heading level 1-2.
And I'm placed directly in the book at the beginning of chapter 2. So
heading level 1-2. Heading level 1 what is the nervous system's functional anatomy.
And just like George was showing in his demonstrations, I can navigate the book by heading.
Complementary landmark research focus 2-1 agenesis of the cerebellum heading level 2.
And you can read by paragraph.
Heading level 2 agenesis. When an adult's brain is damaged.
You can do continuous reading.
When an adult's brain is damaged, as for example in traumatic brain injury, we see a pattern of behavioral changes that offer insight into brain functions, as described by Fred Ling in Ling. Behavioral changes that offer insight into brain functions, as described by.
I just paused and restarted, and it restarted where I paused. So I'm going to go to the next section of this chapter. And I can do that very quickly by, again, utilizing one of my screen reader hotkeys, B to go to button, to go to the next button.
Next button.
And I'm going to go back to the top.
Book content main landmark entering book. The brain's primary function is to produce behavior, or movement.
Okay, I'm going to navigate by heading.
Plastic patterns of neural organization heading level 3.
And now I'm going to navigate by image, as George did in his demonstration, by simply pressing the letter G for graphic.
Figure 2 dash.
And I'm going to read the alt text for this image.
Graphic the different phenotypes of these two mice are visually distinct : one is large and light brown, and graphic the other is small and dark brown.
So that's the actual alt text for the image. Directly below that is the caption for the image, which I can also read.
Figure 2-1 phenotypic plasticity. These two mice are genetically identical but express very different phenotypes because they.
Okay. I also know that there's a table on this page. So I'm going to jump to that table using the NVDA table quick key, which is T for table.
Complementary landmark glossary of anatomical location and orientation table with 15 rows and
I'm going to go into the table.
Row 1 column 1 term.
And I'm going to navigate this table.
Row term column 1 anterior. Meaning with respect to the nervous system column 2 near or toward the front of the animal or the front of the head left paren. See also frontal and rostral right paren. Row term column 1 caudal. Meaning with respect to the nervous system column 2 near or toward the tail of the animal left paren. See also posterior right paren.
So what's important there is that it read me the column heading first and then the contents of the cell. It told me what column I was in. And then as I navigated to the next cell, it read the column heading for that column and the contents of the cell and the location. That tells me this is a properly marked up table that's fully accessible, and my screen reader can benefit from all of the features that were built into it. So we're going to go back up and we're going to
2-1 over.
Show how to navigate by page. And if I navigate by heading, and I'm just doing a shift H,
Book toolbar heading level 2.
I can get to the book toolbar, and if I want to, I can go down to the go to page feature. And I'm going to shortcut and press E to go to the edit field.
No next edit field.
Of course.
Book tools button previous. Book tools region button collapse. Expand.
There we go.
Go to page edit has auto complete 35.
And I'm going to
3
go to page
35 select 3 vital source : introduction to brain and behavior document blank.
And it places me at the beginning of page 38 in the book.
Book content mainland. When the first anatomists began to examine the brain with the primitive.
So as George said in his demonstration, I am at the physical start of page 38 in the book. I'm finally going to show you bookmarks by going back to my book toolbar. Again, shift H.
The basics protecting 2 book toolbar heading level 2.
And I'm going to go down to add a bookmark.
Book clickable edit has button add bookmark. Alert bookmark added.
It tells me that a bookmark has been added. And if I go down one more.
Alert. Button collapsed bookmarks.
I can look at all my bookmarks.
Expanded. Clickable bookmarks heading level 3. List with 7 items link 1-4 evolution of the human brain and behavior.
So that's my first bookmark. I can delete it.
Button remove bookmark. 19.
It tells me what page that bookmark is on.
Link 2-1 over.
So if I want to go directly to that bookmark, I can just activate that link and it'll take me to that location in the book. So I'm going to conclude the demonstration here and turn it back over to George.
So we're almost 45 minutes into this session. We want to leave as much time as possible for questions. We have the video of voiceover with Apple iBooks. That will be a resource that's available, but we don't have time to play that demo. I want to go down to what we consider some of the takeaways from this session. So first of all, we do a lot of testing and a reporting of those results to the developers, and they fix their reading apps when we find bugs in them. We work with the screen reader manufacturers and help them to get their product to be better. But today we see that EPUB with reading apps is working today with screen readers. There is some learning involved because there's some specific application keys that you need, but the basic reading is the same. So the learning curve is relatively
I just wanted to add, if the screen reader user knows how to navigate a web page, they're going to know how to read an ebook.
Right.
Because it's the same commands as navigating a website. So if they can surf the web, they can read an ebook in an accessible e-reader.
And some reading apps are better than others with different combinations, so you've got to figure out what's going to work best for you. And we've got a list of recommendations. We got a link there to inclusivepublishing.org/reading. And going to the second set of takeaways. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is that the fundamental EPUB reading experience is far, far better than reading in PDF. So I would make sure that encourage your students to take a look at learning how to use EPUB. There's a lot of books available. 80% of higher education materials are now being produced in EPUB, and we've got a great future to look forward to with reading. And there's room for improvement, but we're getting there. We're there. Dawn, question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to a little more takeaway there, George, is that for your students who are saying, well, I don't know what e-reader to use, it's not that much different than picking the browser. So some students prefer to use Firefox, some students prefer to use Chrome, some students prefer to use Opera. They need to find the reading system that they're the most comfortable with. And once they find the one that they're the most comfortable with, as we already said, it's just like reading a web page. So there's no huge learning curve like there was in learning how to read a PDF for these students. They can literally start reading the EPUB using the standard commands and navigation that they use with their current screen reader to read a website.
All right, thank you both. I'll begin with the questions. Are all EPUB files accessible to text-to-speech programs and screen readers?
By text-to-speech, are you talking read aloud?
I would think that that would be things like where you highlight a portion of text and then it speaks out loud, Claro Read, Read and Write Gold, those types of text-to-speech programs.
So we're covering the screen reader aspect of things. So EPUB is underneath the hood HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and images. So fundamentally, it's accessible. There are initiatives, and there's another webinar about certification and ensuring the accessibility. We have made available the accessibility checker for EPUB. We're encouraging publishers to use it, and it reports out whether their ebooks are accessible or not. So we've got software to help in that. Now it is possible to create an image PDF, I'm sorry, an image EPUB, and this is done with comics and manga, especially in Japan, and those are not accessible. But normally, your EPUB is accessible. We want it to be born accessible and conform to the accessibility standards that have been established.
All right. In regards to Kurzweil, do you suggest EPUB as opposed to PDF or another electronic version of the file as better to uploading into reading software like Kurzweil?
We have a session that's going to be looking at these things, and we've met with the developers at Kurzweil, and they will be adding more support. But you can use the Kurzweil, and I don't know the name of it, that integrates with web browsing. So you can use the Kurzweil.
Firefly, I think.
Firefly, is that it?
That's what it is. Mm-hmm.
So you can use that for reading EPUB. There's plenty of room for improvement there.
But again, remember what we started out with this session. It's a three-step process. So the EPUB is accessible. The screen reader can read the EPUB, but the limitation there is probably on the e-reader. So it's Kurzweil supporting EPUB, and that's what we're working with them towards, is getting them to fully support and incorporate EPUB.
All right, how do you know if the EPUB has alt text in it?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. How do you know if an EPUB actually has alternative text in it?
You want to take that?
Yeah, simply if you turn a screen reader on, you can just hit the letter G with the NVDA or JAWS on any page that has an image, and it'll jump you to the image, and if it has alt text, it'll read it.
And if you don't have a screen reader to try out, how would you find it in the markup?
Well, that would be the far easier way to find out about the accessibility features of a particular EPUB. In the Vital Source store, you can click on the accessibility, and if it's an EPUB that has published accessibility features, you can read about them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can read the accessibility summary should say whether there's alt text. If it conforms to WCAG, then it will have alt text. It must have alt text in order to conform to WCAG. And so this is part of the accessibility metadata that's built into EPUBs. So that way you can learn about the born accessible features before you buy. And professors could choose to select titles that have proclaimed their accessibility features instead of something that's an unknown.
But for those of you who are getting sideloader content that is not purchased through VitalSource or Red Shelf or a formal distributor, for Windows, NVDA is totally free. All you have to do is go to nvaccess.com and download a totally free copy of NVDA. And on Apple Macs, VoiceOver is built into the operating system. So if you're using a MacBook Pro or Air, all you have to do is press Command F5 and you can load VoiceOver. And on your iOS devices, it's under General Settings, Accessibility. So you have access to a screen reader if you want one. On Windows, Mac, iOS, Android has TalkBack. You can do a little bit of quick checking if you wanted to, just to see if the alt text is there by simply navigating to the image and seeing if it's being read to you, if the alt text is being read to you.
And the accessibility checker for EPUB is open source and freely available. There is a beta of a GUI version, otherwise it's command line, and the GUI version should be generally out later this year.
Great information. Thank you. There is a question for me. I'm so excited. Will AccessText be adding more EPUB formats in the future when we request alt format books? So the answer to that is that it's completely up to each individual publisher as to what files they fulfill requests with or what files they list as an available format for them. So I have seen an increase in EPUB files being offered by some publishers, and that very well likely may continue. So that's the best I can answer you on that.
I can say will continue. The top 5 publishers have all moved to creating EPUB as their format formally, so you will not see them creating new content in PDF. They'll be creating it all in EPUB.
And even though they have print versions of the titles, their XML repositories control the printing presses. They many times no longer even produce a PDF version.
Right.
Perfect. Are most e-readers for EPUB open source?
No.
No, there are some that are open source. The Readium EDR lab has open source, is the major open source effort, and many of the companies will use that open source to produce their their e-reader. We didn't mention Dolphin as one of the e-readers out there, but on iOS and Android, it really is a good option for reading EPUB. Voice Dream Reader, also very, very popular, and there's a price on that one. So I see a chat item come in with about read and write, and it'll be interesting to see how the developments with text help are with EPUB. We've met with them, and we've had very encouraging discussions about what they're going to be coming out with. They've got an EPUB reader, but it's pretty old, and it needs to be updated.
And I just saw a text come in about read and write. I would strongly recommend, if you did not attend last week's webinar on reading for visual adjustment and learning disabilities, you should go back and listen to that webinar, because I know they covered a lot of the issues that we're seeing come into this text chat. We're really focusing on users who are blind or severely visually impaired, who require or rely on a screen reader to access their content, but we are doing other webinars to address other students with disabilities, such as students with learning disabilities. Low vision is next week. Last week was learning disabilities, dyslexia. So stay tuned. There are going to be more coming, and I believe they covered Read and Write Gold in last week's session. So for that question, you might want to go back and listen to that webinar.
So at epubtest.org, we do the testing of the various reading systems. And we have the fundamental test book, which we know is 100% perfect. And we test for non-visual reading with screen readers.
Mm-hmm.
We test for low vision and all the visual adjustments that need to be done. And then we test for the features that a person who's dyslexic or has a learning disability would use, especially the read aloud functions. So the read aloud is not like a screen reader, but it starts the reading using text-to-speech and highlighting as you go along. And that and all the adjustment of the text features, shorter lines, spacing, selecting fonts, foreground and background colors, all those things are we check for and report on with the reading at epubtest.org, and then we have the summary of that at inclusivepublishing.org/reading.
Right. And I can't encourage you enough. Go back and listen to last week's webinar with Richard Orm and Joseph Pelizato. They did a great job on covering those issues for students with learning disabilities and dyslexia and the reading systems in EPUB.
All right. We have 3 questions left. And let's see, we've got 2 minutes left. Are any currently available screen readers particularly good at handling equations, formulas, or STEM-oriented textbooks?
So at epubtest.org, if you go into the test suite, we've got a math test title. It's right now got 6 ways of presenting mathematics, including MathML. So JAWS, for example, you go into the math expression, it says math content, you press enter, and it pulls up its screen reader version of the math reader, and you can go read piece by piece in the expression. Amy, have you done NVDA?
Yeah, I have. I would say if the math is correctly marked up, all 3 of the top screen readers will interact with it and read it. It's all a question of how well it's marked up in the content. So I've tested the math test book for EPUB test with NVDA, JAWS, and VoiceOver. And when it's marked up correctly, they all interact with it pretty well. So again, going back to our tango at the beginning, the content has to be marked up correctly in order for the screen reader to read it correctly in the reading system.
And we're going to be issuing that math book, adding 2 more math tests. And one of the math tests is it has a copy to clipboard, copy the MathML that's there to the clipboard so that you could use it in a different application. So, and what we want to do with that math book is figure out what are the best practices and then make that recommendation to publishers and say, please, you know, use these techniques for math, for delivering your math. So.
One quick answer I can give really quick, Dawn, I saw come in, was how can you tell what page number you're on without having to, you know, do all this? You can in most of the reading systems we demonstrated today. You can simply navigate to the edit field. So E or Shift E, and the edit field is typically going to be the code to page feature. So you'll be able to see your page number. If you are using JAWS, you can use Insert F5 and just read down the list, go to page, and then it'll read the page that's currently there. NVDA, select to read by form fields. And in VoiceOver, use your rotor to go by form fields. So those are 3 quick ways with your 3 top screen readers to determine the current page you're on, is by simply reading the go to page number in the field that's already displayed in the reader.
And remember that with many of these applications, there's this book we were looking at is 592 pages associated with the print book. But if you're looking at it in iOS, there might be 2,000 screens of
6,000.
information. 6,000, okay. And that's different than the ink print page number that we use for navigation.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Oh.
All right. Well, we are at 3:02, so we will make sure to email the unanswered questions to the people that asked them. And I really appreciate all of your time. George and Amy, thank you so much for giving this presentation. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you. Bye, everybody.